Welcome to Module 2, Online Course Design. This presentation introduces the process for designing an online course. By completing this module, you will be able to align assessments, activities, and content with the learning objectives, and follow an instructional design process. One of the most important concepts for designing a course, whether face-to-face or online, is alignment. In a strong course design, all of the components of the course are connected to one another. The learning objectives form a strong foundation for the course. The assessments directly measure the objectives. Then the course content, activities, and tools selected are driven by and support the objectives. Let's look at a few examples of alignment. This is an example of a strong alignment between the objective, assessment, and learning activities. Notice that the assessment is directly related to the objective. Also, the learning activities help students grow their skills so they can be successful in completing the assessment and meeting the objective. The alignment in this example is not as good. For instance, the assessment does not clearly align with the objective. A better assessment would be to have students actually deliver a persuasive speech with visual aids. Unfortunately, this happens in online courses when it seems like an assessment or learning activity isn't possible because students are not face-to-face. However, technology does make most of these possible with a little creativity. For example, students could record themselves delivering a speech using their phones or cameras, and then upload the video to share with you or their classmates. Alternatively, students could deliver the speech live online using a web conferencing system. Now you try. Read this example and decide if the objective, assessment, and learning activities are aligned. With any complex process, breaking it down into steps makes it much easier to successfully complete the process. Designing an online course is no different. While each online course is unique and as a result may require a slightly different development process, the 4 foundational steps to designing an online course are write or revise objectives, design assessments, identify key learning moments, and plan learning activities. Step 1. Write or revise the objectives for the online course. Your objectives become the framework upon which all the other design choices will be made. The objectives will ultimately guide you as you move forward with the development process. If objectives are already written, review them to determine what may need to be revised for an online version of the course. Even if course objectives already exist, you may need to write objectives for each unit or module in the course. You will learn more about objectives in the Writing Course and Module Objectives presentation. Step 2. Design assessments. Focusing on the assessments next may seem strange, since we usually think of courses from the first day of class to the last. But this actually helps to ensure that the assessments are more closely aligned with the objectives. You will learn more about assessing student learning online in Module 3. The final 2 steps are to identify strategies to realize the learning objectives and provide the key learning experiences. A good way to start is by reflecting on the key learning moments of the course. Take a moment and think about your past experience teaching. What works? What are the most effective strategies that help students learn? If you haven't taught before, think about courses you have taken. What made a difference in your learning? What had an impact on you? These techniques help students connect with the material and each other. They help students to make sense of the content and to be actively involved in the learning process. Talk with your instructional designer to learn ways you might not have thought about to replicate these techniques in the online environment. If you know what these key learning moments are for your students and your content, you can be sure to preserve these as you move the course online. It's easy to discard complex activities because they may be challenging to facilitate online, but they are still an important part of the learning process. Once you have identified the key learning moments, you can also plan the rest of the content and learning activities. It's important to consider how to divide the overall objectives into smaller modules, units, or topics. In summary, when designing an online course, ensure that key components, including objectives, assessments, learning activities, content, and technology, align and support each other. Online course design begins with writing or revising learning objectives because the rest of the course design is driven by the objectives. Be sure to incorporate the key learning moments that will help students connect with the content.